Director of National Intelligence James Clapper speaking at a briefing this morning with NSA Director and Head of U.S. Cyber Command Michael Rogers. Clapper noted during this event a new and growing threat from overseas, cyber attacks specifically aimed at U.S. presidential candidates and their campaigns. So you know what? Throw that onto the pile. We have a number of other massive issues around the world that are simultaneously threatening America's interests. Among them, ISIS bombing Baghdad, expanding its power in Libya, Venezuela's economy in chaos as protesters hit the streets. Got Russian jets flying dangerously close to U.S. naval forces, buzzing right over them. Chinese aggression in the South China Seas and on the web. And, of course, we don't forget the Iran deal, for which the House Oversight Committee held a hearing yesterday. Foundation for Defense of Democracies Senior Counsel John Hanna testified at that hearing. He's here to talk about, I guess there's so many things to talk about, sir, and not the least of which is Donald Trump's meeting with Henry Kissinger. What is that a sign of? Is that a sign that Donald Trump is willing to hear people who have criticized his positions and perhaps get a little more experience in an area, foreign policy, where he's been accused of not being that up to speed?
I think I agree with that entirely, Liz, that, listen, Donald Trump doesn't have a lot of experience in foreign policy, national security, as opposed to his opponent, his likely opponent, Secretary Clinton. So I think this really does give him a chance to talk to one of the great giants of American national security policy and gain all of the insights that he has about a lot of very controversial issues that Mr. Trump has talked about, from China to Russia to the issue of NATO, leaving Europe, and possibly nuclear proliferation in Asia. So this is a great opportunity for him to touch base with deep thinkers on foreign policy, and I think it should be encouraging to everybody, and especially if this is the first step in reaching out to a whole lot of people who might be able to provide some insights and experience to him.
Well, I think it's encouraging to some people who felt that, yes, Donald Trump is a very smart businessman, but perhaps he was weak in certain areas. Maybe this is a sign that he's reaching for a little bridge building and a little help. Let me just focus on what we've been saying you would explain, and that is, we just articulated and laid out a whole bunch of issues that are flat in front of us that are quite frightening. What do you think should be the #1 foreign policy issue that the next president tackles and deals with right away?
Saying number one is very, very hard. Obviously, immediately, we are a nation at war fighting an apocalyptic terror group that has openly taken action to strike the United States as well as our best allies in the world. So I think immediately in that inbox has got to be the objective of trying to defeat ISIS as quickly and as efficiently as possible. But then you've got these issues, as you've mentioned, of Russia and China. For the first time since the end of the Cold War, the prospect of an American conflict with some of the other great global powers who possess large nuclear arsenals is actually on the table. The next president is going to have to deal with that and figure out a way to manage those relations peacefully, if possible.
Well, let's get to Iran. You have been very vocal about being against the Iran nuclear deal. A lot of people thought it was just an abomination that we ever held hands with that rogue nation, and certainly in the wake of it, we've seen they've shown very little appreciation for any length of rope that we've given them. But, you know, you've been criticized, too, sir. You were criticized yesterday by Elijah Cummings, who said, who is anyone from the Bush administration to speak about trying to cover up certain intentions, which people said that the Obama administration wasn't quite upfront about the Iran nuclear deal because of what happened with Iraq and the weapons of mass destruction. And that was a big situation where people said you perpetuated misinformation. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say that, yes, there was, obviously, the intelligence on Iraq was false. The important distinction there, the only one I'd make, is that, in fact, that was not a misleading narrative developed by the Bush administration. It's, in fact, what everybody believed the intelligence said, including the current leading candidate to be the next Democratic nominee. Mrs. Clinton believed it, and she voted on the basis of that intelligence to allow the administration to go to war to remove Saddam Hussein. So I'd say that there weren't those misleading false narratives, and we actually engaged our intelligence community. According to the article that was recently published about Mr. Rhodes, the President Obama's CIA director, Leon Panetta, was left completely in the dark about a lot of this, and on the things that he did make judgments on regarding the non-existence of moderates inside the Islamic Republic to do a nuclear deal with. It looks like the administration completely dispensed with that and put out the narrative anyway that there were moderates in the Iranian regime that we were reaching out to make this historic deal, which proves to be at least misleading.
Boy, I wish we had more time because there's Israel, the Palestinians, but I do have to ask about this bill that the Senate passed yesterday. It now goes to the House. This enables families of the victims of 9/11 to sue the Saudi Arabian government for its role in the 9/11 attacks. There's some criticism. Some people believe this is way too much of opening a can of worms and that we would then be vulnerable to lawsuits if you can sue different nation states. Do you feel that it's narrow enough that it will be simply focused on 9/11 victims and their families?
Well, I think we will have to look at what the final bill says. But in general, I think if there are countries out there that are killing American citizens on U.S. soil, there's got to be some accountability. And at a minimum, the American people just need to get to the bottom of what was the full story of what happened and who was involved. Those 28 pages, I think the American people need to have those released because they are not any longer confident that what was revealed in the 9/11 Commission report was the full story. So I think at a minimum we've got to release that. And the Saudis themselves have said, get out the 28 pages. We've got nothing to hide.
Well, let's hope that does come out because the pain is still there 15 years later and will forever be there. John Hanna, thank you.